first presenter is Fiona Walsh, and Fiona co-authors the first presentation with Gareth Catt and David Wells. Fiona is an ethno-ecologist studying the interrelations between people and their environment. As a research scientist with the CSIRO, Fiona is particularly interested in the complementarity of science-derived information and the ecological knowledge of Aboriginal and other local people. Fiona has lived and worked in Central Australia for 21 years, including work in applied cultural and natural resource management with several major Aboriginal organisations in Central Australia, the Pilbara and the Kimberley. More recently, Fiona has turned her hand to video recording and production to extend science communications to a youthful and wider audience. Fiona has been associated with Martu people and their land management organisation, Kanyininpa, Jukurrpa, I hope I did that okay, for 29 years, and she tells us now about this work. Please welcome Fiona.
Thank you, everyone. It is an honour to be here. And somewhat, so I feel like I live two lives. I stand here on Aranda country where I've been well grown up, and I'm also speaking about Martu country to the west. And the talk is about how Aboriginal people have chosen video in a fire management context. It's a joint presentation, as Michelle said, with colleagues from Kanyininpa, Jukurrpa. And yesterday, you'll remember, Fred Chaney spoke of KJ, didn't say the full name, but as an example of best practice by an Aboriginal organisation achieving strong social returns on investment through its programs. My co-authors are out in the field burning and filming as we speak. But I'm very pleased that in the audience, very coincidentally, we've got Martu and KJ colleagues, Leah Robinson, Renette Willalang and Tristan Cole from KJ. I've had a long association with Martu, and Leah's mum was actually one of my strongest Martu teachers. Sarah and KJ have had research projects since the early days of KJ. Gareth, who's not here, that's myself in the top. Gareth is the fire management officer with KJ, and Dave Wells, a teacher, cameraman and video editor. We've had various long and fairly trusted associations with Martu. You've had a fair bit of PowerPoint, so what I thought we'd do in opening is a trailer of what has become a 40-minute documentary. So sit back, relax and listen.
Chaimon wal madagu jawalera ngamriwa pagiri waluna wal yalda yabba bay kalki yalda wendi yalda nyina bay kon yalda nyina no waro yun nyinga dawaga ni jigino go naw nyinga ogani yu nemo balaji tigamu kanku ngalku wirili yun wadanga yan go nyina ko malagari ko next time ngana le ji paw la wagano tete bagala lo war mudan kangu jana nyi nganjil be yana bin kunju.
Fire comes from Jukurrpa, those characters and events that created country, its past and present. Fire is a life force, a tool with many benefits. Today, Martu are amongst the last people in the world to carefully walk and burn their country.
War is more important for Martu people, you know. Everyone by war, you know. Main one balinga. Who get baragango? All people do. Jela nyang wala. Yon mabungo ba? Basta ngayak. Yon makung ngayak benaya nama.
It's our responsibility, you know. Look, we know what we're doing. We're showing the next door kids that are growing up, you know, important it is to take care of our country and all the things that are in it.
It's really important that we got connection working with all people. For us, it's not about just ranger. It's connection, learning more about connection with land.
So that's a snapshot of a 40-minute doco that was an unplanned product from the Western Desert Fire Program. We didn't set out to make a video. And what we're going to look at here is how this video came about. It was requested by Martu. 300 copies have been distributed to them and widely screened. But even more unexpectedly, last week it was on SBS. And it's just been picked up by an international distributor, so we'll go into the North American market. A long way off what we expected when we started at Jukurrpa, at Jukurrpa Hills. Just a brief background, Martu have continuously occupied the Western Desert for more than 5,000 years. Leah and her colleagues, countrymen, know this country better than most people. In the 1950s, fine-grained burn patterns marked where Martu had walked. These are burn scars here. These interjunal corridors are about 200 metres wide. This is to show the changed context of fire management. In 2002, Martu were legally identified in the Western system as native title holders of this enormous area of land bordering the Pilbara and the Great Sandy Desert, crossing 3 bioregions. The Canning stock route dissects this country. Rare and threatened species persist on these lands, and Martu continue to reside in settlements. With active wildfire regimes, as people have retracted from country, we're now seeing fires of this scale. This is the city lights of Perth, and these are the wildfires burning in December 2012. So fires clearly a really major problem. The program had several goals: to reduce regime intensity, develop strong livelihoods for Martu, improve fire management. Oops, how'd that all happen in one go? Facilitate knowledge transfer and practice, develop media that supported that. So Josie talked about organisations that support people to pass on knowledge. Then the recording, the research and the recording to underpin the documentation of this knowledge, and then the use of this media. And then the point in all of this is to apply these learnings from products like this back into on-ground management. And unexpectedly, as I mentioned, we're now going to a context where we're actually having at least some communication with a much wider audience. In this project, we probably did something a little bit unusual. We gave people the option of what sort of media they wanted. So at a meeting at Jukurrpa Hills with 20 rangers, we asked, do you want large English-based photo reports, normal reports, posters, maps, research papers, audio recordings? And I had examples like here of all these different sorts of materials. And really, I think this was my expectation of what people would choose. Somewhat challengingly, they said, no, we want a video. This was tricky. I was 2 days drive from anywhere. I had this iPhone and a Zoom recorder on hand, but we went ahead and made recordings that subsequently became the spine of the video. There's Leah, bottom right. Why did Martu choose this? Burnings are really dynamic practices, and these are huge landscapes. They actually don't fit neatly on paper. People are confident in the subject. They recognise it's the preferred media of younger people. I'd argue all young people, not just Martu young people. and people with literacy videos suited to people with very high visual literacy but lower text literacy. It was immediately relevant to the context that we're working. We could record stories situated in place and in practice. And it was a chance for Martu to build on their existing and developing audiovisual recording skills. And videos are really popular media. People can move it around on USB, play it on PlayStations, watch it on ICTV and ITV. In fact, Leah said to me, I want to see this video on an ICTV. It's got there. And in terms of the content, it's shaped by Martu. So it centres on, it's not about fire in isolation of people, it's about fire's role with people. So it's centred on people. But it brings in Jukurrpa, as you saw in the opening to the trailer. And it's structured around a chronology. So these diagrams actually follow the chronology that are like chapters that break up the final documentary. It builds on old people's knowledge and also talks about some of the complexities and conflicting uses of fire management. And somewhat to my surprise, Martu were quite clear that it had to actually integrate old people's ways with new people's ways, not keep them separate. There's lots of challenges in making video. We've got a real responsibility to edit accurately and honestly to what people mean and do. We structured it in a way to follow cultural norms. So there's senior people who are speaking at the beginning. There's not a central character focus, which is lots of documentary production. Because we had to be careful that we were reducing the risks that this new media would displace the learning styles of Waka and Minyao and senior Martu people growing up young Martu land managers. Like all of us, we're working on a $7,000, was low budget, $7,000 over 6 weeks, $7,000. I was based in Alice. We recorded in the Pilbara and it was edited in Perth. We have to listen for incidental feedback. There's no formal impact evaluation process, and I think we need that. There's also a challenge for me as a research scientist that still video is not a mainstream research metric. Key elements to the success, we've mentioned a topic of national concern. We were building on existing relationships. We gave Māori choices to record in Manjajara, Kārdajara and then translate, so in their own language. Interviews were done on country and there were active Māori roles. We had high quality footage, a stage review process, so it was reviewed by KJ Board, Senior Martu, as well as my SIRO colleagues. Distributed through Rangelands NRM and other partners to the project. Importantly, video is being used as a tool, so Gareth uses this to frame his discussions in future fire planning. But what we know, and it's going to a wider audience, but what we know is that video complements but doesn't replace experience in on-ground burning. Thank you.
One question for Fiona.
My question was just about the point you made about reducing the risk of displacing traditional teachers and learning styles, and I just wondered whether you could make a comment on how you did that.
Well, I touched on one that we were we've worked in this space a lot, but I think one of the main ways is following, so the video opens with senior people, and there was a lot of talking backwards and forwards with senior people about the content of it. But it's also recognising that we're not, as Josie Douglas was talking about earlier, there's lots of limits and people are having to learn traditional knowledge in very truncated contexts. And this is just a contribution to those truncated contexts. But it's a concern and a worry and something to be really mindful of.
Okay. Thank you very much, Fiona. That was a terrific talk. Please thank Fiona.